The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled across the city, swallowing the afternoon sun and turning daylight into dusk. Thunder cracked like collapsing walls, and sheets of rain spilled through streets once filled with laughter. At the edge of a city park, a small wheelchair struggled against the rising flood. A young boy cried out, frightened, helpless, the wheels sinking deeper into the mud. His hands slipped from the rims, his arms trembling with exhaustion as water crept up past his knees. Then, through the torrent, a figure appeared, soaked, shivering, unknown. He moved closer when everyone else ran the other way. What happened next would change two families and a community forever. Earlier that morning, the park had been peaceful. Children chased one another across damp grass while parents sipped coffee under wide umbrellas. The air smelled faintly of rain, the kind that whispers its arrival long before it comes. Among the laughter sat a boy named Alex, the only son of a man whose name opened doors across the city. A billionaire, a builder of empires, and, as many whispered, a man too busy to see the world he owned. Alex was 12. His world was carefully arranged. Nurses, tutors, security guards, and doctors who spoke softly but rarely smiled. Born with a condition that left his legs weak, he moved through life in a sleek, custom wheelchair that gleamed like everything else his father possessed. Yet despite all the luxury around him, there was a quiet emptiness that followed him everywhere. He often looked out from the mansion's glass walls and wondered what life was like beyond them, where laughter wasn't scheduled, where smiles weren't polite. The park was the only place that felt real. A few streets away, another boy named Noah was finishing his day at the small corner store where his mother worked. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him, and the smell of old cardboard and detergent clung to the air. They didn't have much: a one-room apartment, a leaking roof, a second-hand backpack that carried more dreams than books. Noah was 14, clever, quiet, and endlessly curious. He loved fixing things that others threw away: bicycles, old radios, even broken toys he found near dumpsters. To him, everything lost could be mended if someone cared enough to try. That afternoon, he decided to cut through the park on his way home. The sky was already turning gray, but he didn't mind the rain. It was the one sound that made the city seem peaceful. At first, the drizzle was gentle. Children squealed and ran for cover, laughing as the rain began to fall harder. Alex's caregiver nervously checked her phone, trying to call the driver. At the same time, Alex tilted his face toward the sky, smiling at the feeling of cool drops against his skin. Then the wind changed. Within minutes, the air thickened, heavy with the metallic scent of a brewing storm. Thunder rumbled, not distant this time, but close. Before anyone could react, a wall of rain swept across the park like a curtain. Paths turned to streams. The laughter vanished. The nurse shouted for Alex to stay still and ran toward the car park to get help. But when she looked back, he was already sliding downhill, the mud beneath his wheels loosening with every second. The world became a blur of gray water and panic. Panic spread fast. Trees bent under the force of the wind, branches snapping and flying through the air. People screamed and ran toward nearby shelters. The sound of rain hitting metal benches was deafening. Alex tried to push himself forward, but the wheels were trapped in thick, sucking mud. The water climbed up his legs, cold and unrelenting. His hands shook as he tried to scream for help, but his voice was lost in the roar of the storm. Across the flooded path, Noah saw movement, a figure struggling in the distance. He narrowed his eyes against the rain, realizing what it was: a child, alone, trapped in a wheelchair. Without thinking, he dropped his backpack and plunged into the water. The shock of the cold nearly took his breath away. Each step sank him deeper into the sludge. Twigs scratched his arms, and unseen debris brushed against his legs. Still, he kept moving. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even sure what he was doing, but something inside him, that same instinct that made him fix what was broken, refused to let him stop. When Noah reached the wheelchair, Alex's eyes were wide with terror. For a split second, both froze. Two boys who had never met, now bound by the same fear. Then instinct took over. Noah tried to push the chair, but it wouldn't budge. He planted his feet, leaned forward, and lifted with all his strength. The mud sucked and clung, resisting every movement. His muscles screamed, his breath came in sharp bursts, but he didn't stop. Inch by inch, the chair began to move. Behind them. The wooden fence cracked under pressure, water bursting through like a broken dam. The roar grew louder, a reminder that time was running out. Finally, with one last heave, the wheel came free. The momentum almost threw them both into the water. Noah steadied himself, then crouched. He told Alex to hold on tight and helped him climb onto his back. Step by step, he waded toward higher ground. The current pushed hard. Debris floated past. A football, a backpack, a broken shoe, fragments of a world undone. The water rose to his chest, but he kept going, clutching the boy's weight as if it anchored him to purpose itself. At last, he reached the stone steps that led to the monument hill. His knees buckled from exhaustion, but he refused to fall. With a trembling gasp, he placed Alex safely onto the steps and collapsed beside him. They were safe. For now. Moments later, beams of light pierced through the rain. Headlights. Voices. The distant hum of engines is growing louder. Security vehicles arrived first, followed by paramedics, and then, sprinting through the mud, a man in a tailored suit. Alex's father. He stumbled, his shoes ruined, his face pale with fear. He called his son's name, his voice cracking. When he finally saw him sitting there, soaked, muddy, trembling, he fell to his knees and wrapped him in his arms. Then his gaze lifted to the boy standing beside them. Noah, drenched, shivering, silent. The billionaire's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. Gratitude, disbelief, shame, they all collided in the same breath. Noah nodded, his eyes lowering. He didn't wait for thanks. He wasn't there for praise. He turned to leave, but the man's hand caught his arm. No words passed between them, yet something deeper did. A moment of understanding neither could forget. The rain softened into mist. The flood had destroyed much: benches, fences, toys. Still, it had left behind something more substantial. A story of courage that washed away the invisible walls between two worlds. Days later, sunlight returned to the city. The park was unrecognizable. Trees uprooted, mud crusted over cracked pavement, and the once bright playground reduced to splinters. News crews came and went, filming the damage, searching for dramatic headlines. But the real story was quieter. It sat beneath an old oak tree, where two boys shared the same patch of shade. Alex's wheelchair was repaired, a faint line of dried mud still clinging to its wheels, a reminder of what had happened. Noah sat. Beside him, mending the torn strap of his backpack with careful stitches. Neither spoke much. They didn't need to. They had seen the world at its worst and its best in the same afternoon. When Alex's father arrived, he wasn't wearing his suit. He came alone, hands empty, eyes softer than before. He listened as Noah explained how he had pulled his son from the flood, how fear faded when someone else's life depended on him. The man smiled faintly, eyes glassy. For the first time, he didn't see a difference between them. Just two boys, alive, brave, human. Weeks later, construction crews filled the park again, not to erase the memory, but to rebuild it. New benches, new paths, new swings. On each bench, a small plaque carried the exact simple words, "Humanity is the richest thing we own." The story eventually faded from the news cycle, but in the city's heartbeat, something had changed. Strangers paused longer to help each other. Children played without hesitation. The storm that tore the park apart had, in its own way, pieced humanity back together. Because sometimes it takes chaos to remind us of compassion, and sometimes it takes one selfless act to rebuild what wealth alone never could. Maybe that's what real strength looks like. Not power, not privilege, but the courage to act when no one else will, and when no one is watching.